his ministry is still there, but Shepherd's Chapel, a comparison that was always made was the prophets, false preachers at that time, telling the people, prophesying that the people in Jerusalem weren't going into captivity or weren't going into captivity for any more than 2 years. A modern-day equivalent being that you won't have to worry about the Antichrist or the tribulation because you'll be raptured away. And that's very true. That comparison stands. But at the same time, all nations are going into captivity to the one-world system, including this nation. And so when you've got, again, what do we have among other so-called evangelical leaders who are saying that Donald Trump is making America great again, or this Make America Great Again cry, and that we're going to defeat globalism. Well, man doesn't defeat globalism. Man doesn't keep themselves away from globalism. Rather, just as God said, you're going into captivity to Nebuchadnezzar, He's also said you're going into captivity to that one world order. And so I see a parallel there, personally now, to that book of Jeremiah and to what was going on during that time as well. Now, I've got, again, just about less than 15 minutes. I want to make, I think I want to reference, there's a few things I can reference, and I'm not going to be able to cover everything. I do want to reference, I think I lost it, unfortunately. I had some tabs that disappeared on me, and I think I actually lost. No, I didn't lose it. Okay, that's a good thing. This from an individual, Samuel Keefe, who I think does a pretty good job. I don't catch everything, but he's, from what I understand, a Shepherd's Chapel student. Has his own website, has his own Bible study ministry, Bible sharing ministry. A few different offshoots of that, including the Apocalypse Post, and some good information here, some good solid knowledge to keep in mind. The end game of the hidden dynasty of politics. And I don't know if this is a quote from somewhere or something that he came up with. To effectively control a nation, allow them a little hope by offering them a choice of which of your two parties they would like to submit their will to. Encourage debate only within the limited scope of the two-party system, and almost everybody has bought in to this false, I'll say it, false left-right paradigm, and believing that you always have to vote for the lesser of two evils, and if you don't vote for the lesser of two evils, then you're either doing a disservice. If you vote for something else, someone else, you're throwing your vote away. It is amazing to me that people will say that a third party cannot win in this country because not enough people will vote for them, and yet at the same time, if they actually believe that their vote has power, all they have to do, hypothetically or theoretically, is make the choice to vote for a third party candidate, and yet they never make that step. They continue to buy in to this system that again has enslaved them in terms of their thinking process, in terms of leading them spiritually into Babylon. Now, again, that's not judging them. I'm just saying that's what it will do, into spiritual confusion. They will keep going around in circles, arguing between themselves while you implement your agenda regardless of which party is in power. And so it is that, the main thing when it comes to the debt that is being accrued with this country, within this country, by our government, by businesses, corporations, by private citizens, record levels of debt wherever you look at this point. Getting involved in pointless and needless wars to interfere and try to overthrow duly elected leaders in many cases, whether we like those leaders or not. Ironically enough, while some people complain about how there's supposed to be some type of a coup to elect a duly elected president and Donald Trump in this country, and yet they never make the connection, sadly, to the coups that our CIA and that our intelligence agencies and sadly, yes, that our troops get thrown into this as well. not by the will of the American people, not even necessarily by the will of even our government in so much, but more the will of these globalists, of these Kenites, of these Zionists that are trying to set up and are setting up their one world system. He has a comparison here that, again, I won't get into entirely, but he does make mention of the slow-acting deception of the hidden dynasty of politics, and the talking points are transmitted over the airways via the hidden dynasty of education, and the bait is spread into the minds of the unsuspecting public. The funding is provided via the hidden dynasty of economics, while the hidden dynasty of religion being used to fan the flames of the political civil war that continues to distract the masses from the truth of God's word, the main thing here, as well as the geopolitical events that actually are significant for the purpose of setting them up for the spiritual kill when Satan appears as Antichrist at the woe of the sixth trumpet. Again, the point that he makes here, conservative and liberal networks, all owned by the same Kenite money changers, and they play both sides of the fence against one another. Why? To stir up division, to create distractions, but primarily to stir up division, because even as Christ said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. He makes reference to the fact that in the state of New York, abortion was legalized in 1970 under a Republican governor, with Republicans controlling both houses of legislature that legalized abortion in New York originally. Roe v. Wade, the majority of justices on that particular court were appointed by Republican presidents, so many people would say they should have been conservative in their opinion. I've got some information here as well that I could throw at you when it comes to Chuck Baldwin and Trump's talking the talk and his rhetoric on pro-life, but yet we still have $450 million taxpayer dollars annually going to Planned Parenthood. We had Trump, who basically shot down, in a way, the law that was just passed in Alabama to try to end abortion there, saying that you still needed exceptions, or he still believed in exceptions for rape and incest. By the way, out of all abortions performed, about rape and incest account for 0.09, not even quite 1/10 of 1% of all abortions have been from rape and incest, and not quite 0.4 of 1% of abortions have been issues concerning the mother's health, where her life was at jeopardy. So combined, you're talking not quite 1/2 of 1%, or actually it might, not quite 1/2 of 1% are the exceptions that Donald Trump is talking about. And, look, there are emotional issues, and it is a very emotional issue, the issue of abortion. But the point being, even these things are distractions. I did a show quite a while back on the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, and some would say, "Oh, Jason, you can't even reference that. That's an anti-Semitic forgery." Oh, well, we can all have our opinions, and certainly we all do have our opinions. But if it is a forgery and if it is fake, then why does it pretty much describe everything that is taking place, everything that has taken place, and everything that continues to take place as governments are torn down today, as nations are thrown into chaos, as people are divided amongst themselves? This actually, again, I did a series of show on it back in a while back. But this from understandingtheworldtoday.wordpress.com, this was from 2014, this post, just kind of a summary of what is laid out, what their goals are, and how they achieve and how they try to achieve their agenda. And they have this belief that who they call Goyim are mentally inferior and can't run their nations properly. For their sake and ours, we need to abolish their governments and replace them with a single government, a one-world government. This will take a long time and involve much bloodshed, but it's for a good cause, in their opinion. And they go on to say that they will place their agents and helpers everywhere, take control of the media and use it in propaganda for our plans, start fights between different races, classes, and religions, use bribery, threats, blackmail, lies, and deception to get our way, appeal to successful people's egos. And you think any of that goes on? All of this has gone on and continues to go on. Appoint puppet leaders who can be controlled by blackmail. By the way, there is and look at all of the the problems and the controversies and scandals that Trump has found himself enmeshed in. There's a belief that Bill Clinton did not want to attack or did not want to drop bombs in Yugoslavia. Did not want to get involved in that because he knew he would not have the backing of the United Nations. And then all of a sudden he finds himself in his scandal with Monica Lewinsky, and the next thing he's ordering next thing you know, he's ordering bombs dropped in Yugoslavia. Puppet leaders who can be controlled by blackmail. Replace royal rule with socialist rule, then communism, then despotism. Abolish all rights and freedoms except the right of force by us. Sacrifice people when necessary. Eliminate religion. Replace it with science and materialism. You think that's going on in this country? Control the education system to spread deception and destroy intellect. You think that's going on in this country? Rewrite history to our benefit. Use our media to create entertaining distractions. Corrupt minds with filth and perversion. Encourage people to spy on one another. Fourth Amendment, how's that doing today, friends? Keep the masses in poverty and perpetual labor. Take possession of all wealth, property, and especially gold. And by the way, you can find that central banks around the country or around the world are buying up gold as we speak. Use gold to manipulate the markets. Introduce a progressive tax on wealth. And to get, sadly, a little political at this point, partisan, or just point out, you got one political party that certainly is all for that. Replace sound investment with speculation. Make long-term interest-bearing loans to government, Federal Reserve, IMF, ECB. Give bad advice to governments and everyone else. Blame the victim. And, there's all kinds of quotes here on this page that you can look at quotes. You can find various quotes from Benjamin Netanyahu, from Ariel Sharon, from, they've got, I thought it was a particular past prime minister of Israel. Looks like it was actually a rabbi. But you can find you've got some disturbing quotes from Henry Kissinger, who is the Republican go-to globalist for the Republican Party. There was a quote from John McCain that said all of the candidates running in 2016 were calling him, and he said, touch base with Henry Kissinger first. But, again, all these people, like I said, they play both sides. They own both candidates that we think that we have to choose from. Again, I am so low on time. I have so little time remaining, and there's more information I can get to, sadly. I will post all of these links that I do have on the American Faith Today Facebook page, including a link that I've covered before about how Donald Trump has been in league and in partnership with the Rothschilds, that it was Wilbur Ross, our current Commerce Secretary, who bailed him out of bankruptcy. Wilbur Ross, former senior managing director, or whatever the role was, of Rothschild Incorporated. You know who our current Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, former George Soros employee, former, if I'm not mistaken, Goldman Sachs employee. And you can find these people all throughout Donald Trump's administration and cabinet even today. Don't get too caught up in this political dynasty, as I feel too many people are in fact doing. Keep your focus on God's Word. Try to be pleasing to Him first and foremost. Everything else falls into place.